oppressed, even confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're prouder, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the AZAPO online political education platform. And this is where we educate for liberation. Today, I am hosting special guests, and along with me is Comrade Cdes Saths, who is co-hosting today's proceedings. I have three of the stalwarts of the Black Consciousness Movement. I have three former presidents of the Azanian People's Organization. And I have listened to all three of them give the state of the nation at different times. You know, how awesome it is that I'm sitting here together with all of them, giving their different perspectives on the state of our country and the state of the nation. We have seen what has happened to our land over the last 30 years, and we have seen what has happened in our land over the last many years. And they have dissected and given you perspectives of the kind of country we have and the kind of country we desire. I think it is about time that we again come together and reflect on the state of the nation, on the state of our country. Where is it right now and where is it going? And it is going to be an interesting conversation, an interesting 1.5 hours of conversation. Please join us as I welcome Comrade Pandelani Nefolovhodwe, a former president of the Azanian People's Organization, Cdes Saths Cooper, another former president of the Azanian People's Organization, and Comrade Mosibudi Mangena, and another stalwart and former president of the Azanian People's Organization. Welcome to all of you, comrades. It is great to have you on this platform.
Thank you.
If you can just show us your faces, Comrade Saths, and so that people can see who I am talking to. Comrade Cdes, maybe you want to just say hello before we start to engage with these stalwarts of our movement.
Yes, thank you so much. Greetings to all of you. Greetings to everybody that's joined us this afternoon. I am truly, truly excited, and I'm sure you can see my eyes are jumping up and down. I'm completely starstruck. Oh my word, I cannot believe that I am in the company of people that have shaped my thinking, people who I admire and people who I look forward to learning from in terms of today and their views in terms of what we have gone through, and they will give us reflections of where we are sitting and potentially what it is that needs to be done moving forward. Thank you so much to the former presidents, all three of them who were able to grace us this afternoon. I am truly, truly honored to be a part of this platform. Over to you, Simpiwe.
Thanks, Kek. And I think let's take it away immediately, Comrade Nev. What is the state of the nation? Where are we as a country? If you can just help us understand what are we confronted with? You are muted. If you can just unmute, Comrade Nev.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ashe, for inviting me to this platform with my former colleague, comrades I've worked with for many years. I'm joined to these comrades by many things I can say, but I'm not going to worry about those today. I'm joined to Saths for having lived for many years in jail together. And I'm joined to Mosibudi Mangena for having engaged in a very difficult period where I had to negotiate also with him about the way forward of the Black Consciousness Movement. So, and I also joined with Mangena because I served under him as the deputy president. So just for that introduction. But here we are. I'm going to divide this topic into just about three. The first thing that I want to do is to indicate that South Africa was never liberated. It was never liberated. So what had happened is that South Africa entered a stage of negotiation which led to compromises. Everybody now today does understand that indeed whatever settlement we got was a compromise. And it was not a compromise between the masses and the status quo of the day. It was just a compromise between the elite, those who wanted to go into governing the country, and then the regime. And that compromise is what we are now saying is the best constitution in the world. So let's just get this very clear. That best constitution contains compromises that has got nothing to do with liberating the masses. It has got everything to do with exchange of positions. Just like Nyerere did tell Comrade Mandela that the people who negotiated had gone into office, and that they didn't go into office with the power that is required to execute radical transformation in those offices. So that is the status quo that we inherited from the past. The results of that meant that the masses were left out. They were never part of the negotiations. And therefore, the masses never understood, in fact, what was the content. They only understood the fact that they were going to vote. And indeed, the masses were very excited because they never voted in the whole period of oppression. So when people came to them and said to them, you are going to vote, they felt very excited. And also because the people who came to them and said, you are now allowed to vote, were those that they held in high esteem as liberators. So in the mind of our people, which is important for me, in the minds of our people, these fellows who came and said, you can now vote, were bringing liberation. Liberation was going to follow. But as we all know, liberation never followed. So the result of that was the majority were marginalized. But in order to contain the anger of the people as time went on, then the elites went into handouts. They went into handouts. They handed out RDP houses, which could even fall anytime. And they went into deliberate program to maintain their position in government. So that's the first part that I wanted to deal with. And at the same time, poverty was not going down and down and down. But look here, the capitalists, the people who were running the country together with those that are moneyed, decided that it is better to have the blackies go into parliament and so that they can control the political power. So what happened in summary? Only political power was exchanged, and the rest of economic power, even social relations, were not exchanged. So we are living in a situation where people say we are free, but I know we are not free because that exchange of political power without the concomitant economic power, and the social relation. That is, when you have a system has got social relations that either keeps you in poverty, it keeps you where you are, it degrades your dignity. Those social relations are still there. Black people are his dignity, it's still in trouble. So that is the part of the social relations and of this country. Now let's move quickly to how this country now is gradually moving into a situation where the masses now are beginning to read within the lines. This thing is not what they wanted, because every human being in society wants to live well, wants a country that can feed the person, wants a country that can say it's my country. So that is why you find the masses now gradually moving slightly to, it's going to take time, gradually moving slightly to understand that the dispensation was not meant for them. So what do? They decide, or no, the best way of doing it is to stay away from electing these fellows. They thought these fellows were going to bring liberation. So what you see now, it is actually some kind of protest. It's not yet at a level of real consciousness to get rid of these the fellows there. So the elite, when they went into that power, which Nyerere described, they decided to loot, because they decided to emulate their former oppressors. They wanted to live well, to drink expensive whiskey. So that is what you observe in society, and they wanted to be seen driving flashy cars, followed by 20 other cars with 20 guards. And so they created structures for themselves. They even created semi-boundary stands called provinces, so that they can also enjoy the benefit of this new dispensation they have created with the former fellows. But they were also terribly infiltrated in their, because sometimes these fellows who come from the ruling party, they don't reason. So they were clearly infiltrated, because at one stage they accepted membership from their former nationalist party. And they told the nation, or no, the nationalist party people who are joining them are reformed, and they are going to now carry out the struggle as they were. And yet, these fellows were infiltrating them so that they can control them and not make them to deliver what they wanted to deliver. So the reality as we go forward is that the capitalist fellows sat down and said, who is the best, which is the best organization or political party in South Africa which they can support, even if that political party does not believe in everything that the capitalists believe in. And they chose a political party, proper choosing of a political party. But even then, they didn't trust the political party they had chosen. That is the ANC. They didn't trust it. And they decided, no, let's promote our own. And they continued to promote their own, called DA today. They promoted their own, and I'm going to show you just now briefly how it comes into the metros. They promoted them because they never trusted that these former fellows who were in the bush and who were toying all over, who went to jail, will actually conform to their program. So they needed a second party which can then be able to safeguard their interests. Now, this interest they want to safeguard, one is the capitalist system that gives them life. That's where they eat, right? Secondly, those who are not rich, like all other people who are in the capitalist production, they decided that those who are not in that richness, their privileges must be protected. So when you find a white person who is a descendant of white privilege, toying and supporting even activities of black people, it's merely to protect the inherited privileges that they have. These privileges have been inherited on a crime against humanity. So they got lots of privileges and they are carrying them up to today. And of course, those who were born now, you can't blame them because they were born in privilege. If it was me, I will also do the same thing to protect the privileges that my forefathers had accrued all along. So the struggle is to protect the capitalist production and to protect white privilege on top of that. And now, in order to do that, they had to have political parties because that is an arena which is running the country. That is the arena which can bring tenders. That is the arena which Ramaphosa is proud to say, I'm going to have infrastructure built all over, our people will benefit. That infrastructure which is going to be built, it will benefit very few people, some few workers here and there. But the bulk of that is going to these very capitalists. So they need someone who can champion that cause to open up the gates. Now, another thing that they are doing, as far as I'm concerned, they are sabotaging the economy. The capitalists are sabotaging the economy, but also as a means to force our people to open up for them. Now, they are sabotaging the economy because there is some trillion of rents that are staying, that have been reported for almost 5 years now, which is not being reinvested in the South African economy, which is money owned, which is money of South Africans. Citizens of South Africa are refusing to invest into the economy because they don't trust. They think these blackies will be able to nationalize whatever they have. So in order to guard against their own money, they decide just to hoard the money somewhere. There are those also who are taking the money out of the country. There are a lot of millions that are being taken out of the country, and that is also another very serious matter. So what happened? These other guys who are from the ruling elite, they've decided to loot. After looting, there's none left in the coffers of government. So what do we do? We look at metros, because all metros are known to be areas of very important economic activities. And economic activities just means making more money and making more money. So the parties, particularly the DA, it's fighting for metros, not merely just to come with what you call service delivery. For me, it's not for service delivery. And yes, service delivery will be also part of the plan, just to cushion out the masses. The masses all the time must be cushioned out. So you will see some service delivery, not to share the productive activities and money that is being made, but to be able to cushion the masses out of this equation, because ruling elites survive only on cushioning the masses. It can't survive unless it cushions the masses. So that is a very important weapon for those who are still, young who are going for political activity to realize that the masses are merely being cushioned out. And the ANC tried to cushion the masses with RDP and some other handouts up until they stole all the money and they were no longer able to cushion the masses. But now the metros are still very active in terms of what you call capitalist productive activities. And that is why you found parties being formed merely to concentrate on the metros. If you check what they are doing now, even now where they are talking about, hey, you can take that metro, I must take this, you must take that, but it is an exchange of the elite. Exchange so that they can have this one metro where they can control what happens there, and then they can be able to feed themselves. So the masses are still left out. Now, maybe let me end here by saying, what do we do when it is like that? I'm really worried. What do we do? Now, my own opinion is that the dispensation itself must be destroyed. The dispensation that was signed for at Captain Park by Mandela and other people must be destroyed, because it is that dispensation. It's like a car. If you are driving a car and you hope that next time it will become an aeroplane, you're wasting time. So you've got to go into the car itself, either sell it if you want to go into an aeroplane. So the dispensation itself is faulty, because many people know the dispensation didn't even deal with what I regard as the original sin. The original sin to me is the land of our forefathers. That original sin, the dispensation didn't even touch. It only touched it when it wanted to, the white negotiators wanted it to be, wanted the land to remain in their hands. I was reading yesterday, just to conclude, that the land audit is out now, and 72% of the land in South Africa is still in the hands of a very small population of our people. And that is unsustainable. You can't have a country where people live in and you say, this is our country. How do I wake up and say, this is my country when I do not own it? And so that is the big struggle. And as you can see, the parties are also differing on whether it should be returned or it should not be returned. A simple thing that every country has done, we are still struggling, because the gatekeepers, the political, what I call political parties that are gatekeepers for white privilege, are still in charge. Thank you very much. I hope we will talk more about this. When I talk this thing, I become a bit emotional. I just believe that people are dodging issues here. Thank you.
People are dodging issues indeed, Comrade Nefolovhodwe. Thank you so much for that analysis. And I'm quite keen to hear more about the pacifier and the compromise and all of the issues that we are currently facing. Comrade Mangena, I am so glad that you were able to join us as the leader who's led the most in terms of the organization during this time, during this dispensation. You have seen the ANC come to play. You have seen black on black betrayal. You have seen where we are sitting right now. What are your views on all of these things?
Well, thank you very much, Kekelezo. And greetings to the other two comrades who are sharing the platform with me. And as they have said, indeed, we have been together for a very long time. I first met Saths at the University of Zululand. He was in a drama called Tekon, and they had come there to come and conscientize the students at the University of Zululand, where I was. Little did I know that later on, the two of us will be the youngest to lead the Black People's Convention. We were with Nefolovhodwe, Comrade Mkolitwa, and Sipho. And the three of us were the youngest, and Nefolovhodwe then had to deal with these youngsters in that executive of the BPC. And of course, then later, Comrade Saths and Comrade Nefolovhodwe, together with the Klep Hoyers, landed on Robben Island when I was already there. And so I had to teach them the trunk, how to in prison and so on a lighter note. But of course, then we worked together for so many years. And as Comrade Nef has indicated, we served in the same executive of AZAPO for a very long time. And Comrade Nef has said a mouthful indeed. And my input, as Kekelezo had said, will be centered in part on the fact that I've served for so long. We will remember that before 1994, AZAPO elected new leaders every year. Every year there was a Congress and a new president and so on was elected. And that there was a reason for that, because we wanted to preserve our leadership and ensure that we are not chopped at the top, and then the organization finds itself in paralysis. So for the 16 years that I was president of AZAPO, I've seen many transitions. And I want to talk about them because, as I said, I want to center my input on us as an organization, and what do we do in the circumstances in which we find ourselves. There was a transition from an organization that was involved in armed struggle and in all other forms of struggle to overthrow settler colonialism. And so during my presidency then, we had to transit from an organization that is involved in a struggle, in a national liberation struggle, to one that now operates in a legal environment, so to speak. There was the transition to bring the exiles back, comrades who were in exile in Botswana, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere, and they had to be brought into the country, almost all of them. That needed to be managed by all of us. There was the need to integrate demobilize these comrades and integrate them into, that is, as combatants, into the fabric of our society, as well as the fabric of their own organization. There was the transition from the BC living or existing as two organizations, the BCMA and AZAPO, that met at Shaft 17 to unite the two organizations into one. And that was, from comrades who are aware or who were there would know that that was not an easy matter at all. And we still live with the consequences of our management of that process. We also had to transit from an organization that had taken a decision that it is not going to engage itself in electoral politics. And in 1995, the organization went to Qwaqwa, where it now took a decision that it is going to be a political organization that takes part in electoral politics. It was during that period that there were two splits in AZAPO in the 16 years, when at different times, comrades left to go and form other organizations. We had to grapple as a movement with all these dynamics and the developments that affected our organization so much. And after the elections of 1999, AZAPO found itself with members in parliament. And so now suddenly, AZAPO is a parliamentary organization. And that needed to be managed because there were so many tensions. And I can assure you that those tensions exist up to this day. Then there was, of course, my appointment as Deputy Minister of Education, and as later on as Minister of Science and Technology. This was the biggest crisis of them all. And I can imagine the tension that it caused within the organization. There was a lot of backwards and forwards, up and down, right around the provinces of our country, consulting with our comrades. And that the consequences of that arrangement, where AZAPO for the first time found itself in the executive, was a transition of sorts. And I do not think, from where I'm sitting now, that AZAPO has acquitted itself well through all these processes that I'm talking about. And that's why today we still live with those consequences. And I think what is required is that we are able to read the conditions, the circumstances under which we operate, and what the masses conceive that situation to be. There are many times when you listen to us talking, it is as if it's pre-1994, as if we are not in 2021 presently. So it is terribly important. You remember what Kwame Ture said to us in Ginsberg, that you've got to read the mood, you've got to read the circumstances, and whilst you keep your principles and your ideology, but you must sharpen and change your strategies and tactics as you move along. And I think that's where, as an organization, we have not done well. We have not sat down to analyze where our masses are. Our masses are not where we were in 1990 or in the 80s. And that's one of the reasons why, in my view, from where I'm sitting, those masses are gradually disengaging from AZAPO, apart from our own activities, because we ourselves have stopped engaging with the masses of our people as much as we should do. Comrade Nef has indicated that there is no liberation, that we have had a sellout. And that sellout has enormous consequences for our country. At no time is AZAPO more needed than now to rescue our country from the circumstances and the problem in which it finds itself now. Everything is falling apart. Comrade Neff talked about this. I wouldn't like to go back. We have not done anything in as far as land reform is concerned. Our education is in shambles. Healthcare is in shambles. Security for the person in our country is in shambles. Women and children in our country are under threat. They are endangered species in this country. There is the worth of the country in terms of state-owned enterprises, or the riches that reside in state-owned entities, such as the post office, ESCOM, Transnet, and so on, have all been looted to their knees. So I think what is required now in AZAPO is for us to get together, instead of concentrating on small things that might divide us from time to time, concentrate on the bigger picture. How do we save our country from the morass in which it finds itself? And I do say this to many people, that I think we are in danger of this country breaking up in the near future. As near as we aspire to have it, might not be there in the near future if we allow Mavarara and others to continue along the lines in which they are continuing now. We are going to be fighting one another, killing one another, and there are people who can find, or who, if they can find something they can coalesce around, such as, say, people in KwaZulu-Natal coalescing around Zuluness. They might feel that, let's leave this South Africa and go somewhere else. The people who may coalesce around Africans and whiteness in the Western Cape and elsewhere might feel that they will now want to leave this South Africa. And we will not allow them. We're going to fight them when they do that. And what we will then find ourselves in is a civil war. And so it is terribly, terribly important that we get together as AZAPO and like-minded organizations only if we ourselves have found ourselves and our voice and our solidarity, so that we can extend that solidarity towards our people. Presently, we are not able to extend that solidarity or to rally our people to come together to fight for what is theirs, because we ourselves are not organized and sufficiently educating one another about where we are now and what the imperatives of the struggle today are all about. Strategy and tactics. What will we use in order to get our country out of the situation that Comrade Nef has so eloquently described?
Thank you, and Mangena, and you know, what a mouthful in terms of what AZAPO has been confronted with, and you know, thanks, Comrade Nef, for the education that you gave us with regards to where the country is. Comrade Saths, you've heard the two comrades painting a picture that has been heard. We have heard this, so many years before. And we have seen this, in the past. What Comrade Nef just told us is what AZAPO said in 1992. It is what AZAPO has been saying all along. And Comrade Mangena speaks of the disengagement of people from AZAPO. And I would actually go on further and say, well, people are disengaging from any of the liberation or any components of the liberation movement that are involved right now in these electoral politics. What does this really mean for the Black nation? Where are we headed? What is going on?
I think, and greetings to everyone, and for you calling this, I think that there is the saying, we deserve the leadership we get. And we have experienced that. We have experienced that in the dispensation we've seen for 27 years. We have seen that in the various liberation formations. And not least, we have seen that in AZAPO. There has been a sense of almost glee, if you like, with some of the difficulties that the ANC has experienced. And I want to say right out, I am not a defender of the ANC. I will not defend rapists, robbers, and rogues. However, we need to appreciate, and that's been alluded to already by the two previous presidents. There has been a certain historic base which enabled the ANC to play the kind of role it has played. Now, when we saw the factions within the ANC, we tended to, and I think most commentators also tended to try to make sense of those. And indeed, there was probably a sense of glee from a lot of quarters. However, the real loser here is our country. Our people individually and collectively have lost phenomenally in this period. We've experienced a liberation fatigue such that very, very, very few people, unless we're speaking to ourselves and we're speaking to others who have been part of the liberation movement and that history, because people don't want to hear any of that. If you ask our own children and others around us, and in advance of these elections, the last one and the previous ones, and those before that, many of our kids were asking us, are we still going to vote for AZAPO? Are we still going to throw away our vote? It's also important to recognize that there was a tremendous shift in the 90s. And I don't think, and Comrade Mosibudi has dealt with that, I don't think we were able to breach that gap from then into now, despite the clear objective evidence that there's a changed geopolitics, not only in our country, but globally, and that has continued apace, and that more recently we've experienced a digital revolution. Our people consume products very differently. This is the age of instant experts holding forth on social media. And we have not met many of these challenges, even in our recent election campaign. And I'm not going to dwell on some of that because it'll be invidious for me to do so. But when we look at those factions, we ourselves, in many ways, have been, in one shape or form, part of a faction, if you like, within this AZAPO. You know, when ANC people talk of this glorious movement, and Comrade Mkabela, I recall years ago, chastising young people for saying, how can you say, Ki arata I ANC? How can you love an inanimate object? But are we not also similar in doggedly throwing our lot with an entity that we have seen has been more and more removed from the realities of what our people confront? I'm acutely aware also that, yes, there are three of us here as previous presidents, that there are four 5 others who are past presidents. And of those, perhaps at least the bulk, the Mabasas, the Mkabelas, the Mosalas, are not part of this AZAPO that we talk of. And somehow we have been destabilized amongst ourselves in engaging in all sorts of unity talks, and ultimately many of those have failed. So it is time, I think, that this organization has a very, very close look at itself, at its cadre of leadership, and look at what it is that we realistically feel we want to do from what it is we should do. Caught as we are in the realm of the prevailing structural politics that is with us. And a very short word on that. The compact reached in 1994 between those who were in the government in the days before the April elections has become a norm. The proportional representation system that was interim has become a norm, and the majority of our people actually have no inkling about anything different to that. And thus it is that we've had, my count tells me when I looked at the IEC website, that there were 1,482 parties registered prior to the local government elections. And that in itself is a message that says that people have realized that in times of economic devastation, in times of the pandemic destruction, the new economy is political. So form a party. We can have a little party of Nefolovhodwe or Cooper, and we can stand for election somewhere, and we'll make a decent monthly salary of between 30 to about 50,000 a month, and all the perks that go with it. And as Nef pointed out, there's a lot of real value at the local level that they can untap. We can untap for our friends, our families. But, you know, I'm reminded that when we were younger, when we raised the kind of society we would like to create, nothing would have portended that we would be in this right royal mess that we are in now. Indeed, I think we gave up a lot in the integration process of exiles and so-called inxiles, and then that had its own factionalization in all arms of the liberation movement. Have we recovered from that? We need to be looking at that very, very closely, because there are shades of those in almost every webinar that I participated in the last couple of years, where we still get the what if and why our position was correct. If we had good positions, we shouldn't be able to have to defend those. Those should be realized when our people resonate with what we say. But we've reduced ourselves to a bunch of sloganeering persons where we can talk about our past and we can cotton on to a few favorite phrases. But that means nothing, because we have tended to lose the sense of agency, the liberatory, revolutionary agency that we urged in our youth, because we've begun and we continued successfully to ape principally the ANC in its structure, in its formations. Indeed, one of its results is a youth formation, whereas we didn't have that youth formation as such, but I'm not going to go into those issues. Suffice it to say that when we talked then, we did not imagine that we would replicate what those few of us who traveled had the benefit of traveling to some of the African states north of our border, where as soon as you arrived in the airport, you found a massive portrait of the potentate, whether he was president, premier, self-anointed or not. We have taken that to the level that you cannot go into a local office of anybody with a title without finding. You'll have the portrait of the president, the deputy president, the minister, the deputy minister, the premier, the mayor, and then down to MMC or whatever. Now, imagine that economy that political formations have gotten used to. We've also not looked at how we can distinguish ourselves from the rest. And I'm sad to say that the critique we mounted against those who theorized and had very good theories, but were bereft of engagement and support from their own families, friends, neighborhood, and indeed the people. The unity movement was a disunity movement. And we have not learned from their armchair positions. You know, we used to criticize them for having all those theories and historic locations, but that they were armchairs, critiques. We sometimes have gotten so much into the armchair role that you can't distinguish between the wooden or the cushion in the armchair and ourselves. So we need to have a wake-up call and really come to terms with that reality. I said when I started that we deserve the leadership we get. Do we deserve the mediocrity that has abounded without a few singular names in our country? However, whatever we may think of their political or other positions, we have not really projected that leadership that is sterling, that leadership that we can look up to. We elect a Nefolovhodwe and then look at a way to pull him down very quickly. So we don't need to look very far to realize that we have, in very singular ways, repeated those mistakes that we so loudly critique the ANC for. The one distinguishing feature, if I may, is very few of us sold out and worked for the other side. In the heady liberation struggle era, you can name very, very few. If we can reach a baker's dozen of those who sold out then I will take a vow of complete silence and shut up forevermore. However, with the ANC, as Nef pointed out, at the rendezvous of victory, April to May 1994, the realization that from that first cabinet, I cannot speak for the current one, From that first cabinet, we had compromise. And that compromise persisted for obvious reasons. So until we have a coming clean, until we have the kind of transparency about self, about other, to say, you know, I did this when I was president of AZAPO, which ought not to happen. Nef did that when he was president, which ought not to have happened. Why then would we expect that the ANC will just come and reveal who sold us out and who didn't? Why then do we expect of them a transparency when we ourselves cannot have that kind of acknowledgement? Indeed, the current Minister of Health has risen in my esteem, because after he assumed acting ministership, he's the first minister I know that actually apologized to the people, stood on television, in front of television cameras and radio and the print media, and apologized more than once. Nobody else does that. We come from a place where we just think we can carry on with this macho approach to what we believe in without acknowledging that all of us are flesh and blood and that we do make mistakes. We make colossal mistakes. But if we acknowledge them, we're able to bridge those gaps. We're able to cover the mistakes Nef made, the mistake Cooper made, to be able to put forward another face at that point. But what we do is we continue the layer upon layer of obfuscation, not getting to the point where we need to realize, is Nef trustworthy? Can he do it? Is Cooper trustworthy? Can he do it? Instead, we tend to ignore all of those issues amongst ourselves. So why then should we be so critical of that party which has lost? And I must point out that steadily from 2009, the voting numbers have depreciated phenomenally in real and percentage terms. And the biggest worry is that young people who are eligible to be registered to vote do not, and nobody's bothered about that. The numbers between the previous election and this one of voters on the IEC books look the same, and the pandemic didn't kill a few million people. So why was there no increase in the voting pool? It's because nobody wants to bring in the nuisance value of young people who are going to turn this voting entrapment around. Indeed, there are countries like Kenya, India, where if you look at and I mean, in the polls that I went to, the voting page was over a meter long, both of them. Right? Now, at the bottom of the voting page or your ballot, there should be none of the above. And if we have none of the above, it may tell us what the people really think of the politics that we are so engrossed in. And I know there are people from other organizations on this platform, whether you belong to and vote for the ANC, whichever other part of the liberation movement, we need to actually think that there is a major problem of disaffection. Young people are disaffected. They've been removed from all serious processes, except for those who are post-matric and manage to find something better to do, or are in university. But even there, the numbers of registered voters is very small. So it tells us that something is seriously wrong, not only with our own politics, but with the system of politics, where we need to seriously confront our own behavior against our history, and we need to look at how do we rise beyond the dead end that seems to confront us at every pass. I recall a conversation that Nkwenkwe Nkomo and I had at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And we talked of, the 30% pass mark. It was matric, I think, just after matric, the 30% pass mark. And we were talking about the destruction of our future when you have this kind of lack of quest for excellence, where being mediocre, being average is what is given a pass. And we talked of Vervoet and we talked of Kada Asmal and said both of them would be fighting wherever they are to say who succeeded. Nkwenkwe said, and he used a swear word, those talking about the apartheid system, which I won't repeat here, saying, he used the B word. Those Bs failed to destroy us, but these Bs are succeeding. Comrades, brothers, sisters, if we look at the failures of our election system, our state, our own political formation, the horror of horrors is going to happen. Boss and madam will end up being relied on for delivery when a people faces desperation, face a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. And if we look at maybe this president will announce another set of restrictions tonight or tomorrow or whenever he does, but if we use lockdown language, we have reached failed level state 5, state 4, level 5. The next level to go to of failed state is level 5. That is keeping us from the orgy of destruction and killing that we experienced in July. The winters of our discontent will recur if our people continue to be deracinated from the processes that ought to serve them. And in that, we should look at our own culpability and complicity. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Comrade Saths Cooper, Comrade Mosibudi, Mangena, and Comrade Pandelani and Nefolovhodwe. I think, it has always been true that, this movement is so endowed with, good analytical abilities and, correctness of analysis of what we see. And I believe that is seen in action this afternoon. And, I think it is this correctness that we have always prided ourselves, about that, we are very proud of the correctness of our analysis. But now the real question, maybe to the three of you, is that as much as we have always been correct in our analysis, but this correctness has somewhat led to dissonance with our people. Why is it that there is always dissonance between our correct analysis of perspectives and views about our country and the people? If we claim to be as credible about that which we are correct, to whom are we credible? If there is dissonance between our correctness and the lived realities of our people, and our people not supporting that which is seen to be correct, how did we lose it? And where do we bridge the gap? And how do we go about bridging that gap? Maybe that's a question that the three of you can venture into. And linked to that, if you look back in retrospect, was it perhaps a good decision to make that 1995 Kwakwa conference, where we took the decision to participate in this electoral democracy? considering the analysis that we gave to about our country. I'll start with Comrade Mangena and then Nef and then Saths Cooper.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll probably touch on it in a roundabout way, touching on some of the things that my colleagues have, comrades have touched upon. We shouldn't be saying that today's generation should behave like us, should do the kind of things that we have done. Comrade Saths was talking about the fact that now this is the era of technology and the era of fast movement, fast information, and the kind of things that we engaged in. The young people of today are not engaging in. They are engaged in drugs, issues of drugs. They are engaged in HIV and similar things. And when we grew up, those were not the big issues that young people had to grapple with. But what is clear is that when we were young, strangely enough, we married theory with practice. We were out there with the masses of our people. Comrade Saths talk about this situation where the unity movement was wonderful in its analysis and their grasp of socialism and Marxism-Leninism. But they just sat on their chairs and analyzed what was going on. And that's precisely what has happened to AZAPO now. We say that we are an organization whose ideological pillars rest on Black consciousness and socialism. But to my mind, we have tended with the passage of time to de-emphasize Black consciousness and emphasize more our analysis of the situation in terms of Marxism-Leninism. And we have tended in the process to move away from the masses of our people on the ground on a day-to-day basis. And yet, Marxism-Leninism are precisely about those things that face our people now. Our people want security, they want land, they want jobs, they want the good education for their children and so on. And this is where, as young people, we related with our people. Saths and Nef will remember about the literacy programs that we had, health programs leading to the building of Zanimpilo Clinic in the Nyoka village and so on. How Bumapeta and them were working with people who have just been released from prison and so on. How Steve and them were working with people in King Williamstown in those little projects that were meant not only to help our people with what they were dealing with at survival level, but also to improve and increase their solidarity and confidence in themselves that they can actually do things, they can change their circumstances. So what has happened now is that we have de-emphasized the BC element that comes with the solidarity of Black people to an arrangement where we analyze too much and do very little in as far as the condition of our people on the ground is concerned. The Qwaqwa Congress, in my view, was correct, because you've got to analyze at all given times, what is it that you need to do? Where is the people? What are the masses of the people thinking of, and what are they doing? Comrade Nefolovhodwe talked about the fact that the people... What's happening?
Continue, comrade.
Yeah, talked about the fact that the very people who were nudging and cajoling the masses to take part in democratic dispensation and so on were the very people that they were looking up to. So you've got to think of what are the tools under these circumstances? What are the tools in AZAPO's hands to advance the interests of Black people? Before 1994, we had armed struggle, we had stayaways, we had all sorts of things that we had. What are you going to do in circumstances where those things are not where your masses are? The geopolitics is different and so on. Unless there are those who say we remain outside of the political processes in the organization and work outside the parliamentary politics. And I think that has got its own consequences that have not been properly analyzed and quantified as to what it would have meant. And in fact, there are those who are saying that our non-participation in the 1994 elections were in fact responsible to a certain point how we did in subsequent elections. But I think whilst that might have played a role, the fundamental thing is that AZAPO had not fundamentally accepted that things have changed, that we have moved away from the struggle against settler colonialism to a struggle against neo-colonialism. It has not accepted that. And so everything we do is half-hearted. We don't campaign. We are in the elections for freedom, but to get elected into municipalities and into the provincial and national elections, but we really don't campaign with a passion. And it is because in our heart of hearts, we have not accepted the 1994 settlement. And those are the consequences of some of this. I'm not saying that we should accept it, but the way you behave towards this settlement has consequences.
Thank you. Comrade Neff, 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, and I will be short. You talked about our correctness.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't give the context of what makes people to believe that they are correct. It is not correctness for its own sake. And I've noticed of late that within AZAPO, when people are on social media, WhatsApp, and someone writes something and another one replies, they talk that as, they regard that as the correctness of AZAPO. Now, there is nothing that happens in society that is not linked to the people of that society. So if people want to be correct for the sake of correctness, those people, you must tell them they are out of order. Because the dictum is that your correctness must be from the masses. You can't have anything that you do by yourself and think you are going to liberate anybody. So where do you get your ideas from about even your correctness about the masses? You must go and sit down with the masses. They will teach you one or two things which you never thought it's there. So if AZAPO wants to go forward, it must learn, as Mangena is saying, it must learn to interact, to literally interact with the people and to be with them. And some writers have even said, you must dirty your hands, because that place is very dirty. It has got no correctness that we are talking about, that when you articulate, this is how you are going to articulate. It has got nothing with that. It has got interaction with people who live in certain material circumstances. And you will discover, if you were like some of us, you would discover many things. In fact, your theory becomes much more better. So AZAPO is actually left behind by the activities of our people in that sense. Congress. The Congress was correct in the sense that you don't wage a struggle in vacuum. A struggle has never been waged in vacuum. A struggle looks at where the people are supposed to be, even when you don't accept where they are. You don't need to accept that the people are there. For instance, let me give you an example. The people are somewhere at accepting the old order which was created at Kempton Park and literally rejecting it to the point of destroying it. So they are somewhere there. So AZAPO must be able to say, all right, people are somewhere there. Let me go there and dirty my hands. So if you want to dirty your hands, you will find those that are in local government talking to you. If I had time, I would explain more about this concept of having to deal with the struggle from the masses' point of view, not from your own head, which you might
Thank you,
Comrade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comrade Saths.
Yes, let me just make this statement. I think in its boycott, AZAPO boycotted the people as well.
Yeah.
Very simply put, it's not a Kwakwa decision of 95 that should be looked at as incorrect. It is the 1991 to 94 lack of engagement in whatever was happening that gripped the imagination of the people, from which I dare say AZAPO has never ever recovered.
Yeah.
So being correct is fine, but that correctness, if not carried by the people that you purport to represent, is meaningless.
Yeah.
So we can get stuck with a position, and some of the positions that we put forward, sometimes Mosibudi mentioned the Marxism, Leninism. I think we got stuck with some of that rhetoric because of the attacks on us. We were CIA agents, we were X and we were Y, we were communalists, whatever. And the result is we find ourselves often progressively with more and more cul-de-sac places that we can't get out of. We paint ourselves into a corner because the slogan is so unattainable that most people will ignore us. And let's be very honest, in the playing fields that we have occupied, whether they are in the political system now or in our branch system, we have seriously come unstuck. And that is what we need to be reviewing. We also purport to be Black consciousness, but we have not engaged. Mosibudi has mentioned the programs. I think Mbeleko started doing some programs. That's the only one I know in recent times that has tried to do certain programs. Most of our structures don't engage. We come there perennially before one of those elections and do a half-hearted attempt to convince people. How different are we then from the others? So I think the problem is we may be too tired. We may lack the vim, the vigor, the energy, the ability to lead and to stand for position. Therefore, we should move aside, allow people who have that ability to come forward.
Thank you. One or two contributions from our audience. Here's Veli Mbele. Veli, if you can make your comment or question.
All right. Thank you, Dimashe and Comrade KK. You're facilitating very well. I appreciate this. And acknowledgement to our mentors, the three presidents. There's so much that has been said, and I will not waste your time. I will just shoot at those things. And I have the WhatsApp contacts of all your guests, so I will take up the other issues offline.
Yeah.
So the first one is, it's a general point. When you analyze yourself as a movement, you must look at internal and external factors so as to arrive at a correct conclusion, right? I understand why the presidents are flogging themselves so much, because they are immersed in the internal, right? So I understand the pessimism that I'm sensing here. You know, we did this, we did this. But you see, AZAPO formed itself and decided to go toe-to-toe with imperialism, right? Not just the National Party and apartheid, imperialism, which is a vicious, organized, global, and violent machinery. Now, AZAPO took a conscious decision to go up against that machinery. So the consequences of why AZAPO finds itself and what it has suffered, it's because AZAPO took a conscious decision to go toe-to-toe with imperialism. Now, linked to that, I also think we are making a false distinction, right, between settler colonialism and neo-colonialism, because neo-colonialism is a perpetuation of settler colonialism, right? So what you see happening today is imperialism in its neo-colonialist form. You are still fighting against imperialism. It's not just about elections and budgets. It is the program of imperialism, right? So I just think the distinction is a bit false and misleading, right? Because we are still fighting imperialism, that's 2. 3, I also think the generation of Comrade Nef, Comrade Mangena, and Comrade Cooper should be given a lot of credit, right, for what they have done and how they have inspired some of us, because I think that's one of the things that's never done, right? That many of us in AZAPO, but also in society, who are much younger than them, are where we are in society because of the sacrifices and the contributions that they have made, and they need to hear that. Now, what the country needs today are things that they have pioneered. 2 of them are the following. The Kadoma consultation, right, gives us a template to the types of problems that Comrade Mangena has analyzed. And in more recent terms, AZAPO conceptualized something called For the Sake of Our Country. That project and that type of vision is very, very needed much more now, you know. So the only thing that you really need to do, in my view, is to go and look at the Kadoma consultation and For the Sake of Our Country and how to articulate those, because they speak squarely to where we find ourselves today. Lastly, I don't think our movement, right, AZAPO, would be able to do half of the things if they don't address the issue of healing internally, right? So we can speak about the systems issues, you know, strategy, tactics, but you see, human relations do not work because of strategies and tactics. Human relations work because of how people treat each other. And for us to get things right, I think we need to pay attention to the project of internal healing, right? I don't want to go as far as to say we need our own TRC, etc. But there is a need for reconciliation within the BC movement. If we are going to get the country right, we must deal with the issue of reconciliation within the BC movement. Thank you so much. Let me just leave it at that.
Thank you, Sonpisi. And okay. There was somebody else who had his hand up, but I think it has dropped. All right, KK.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had a lot of questions myself, but I just want to go quickly to the people that have joined us on the chat so that we can read some of their questions, which I'm now, for some odd reason, struggling to get. Somebody is Huawei P10 Lite. I don't know what the person's name is, says, honesty is the first step to action. I think this is directed at Comrade Cooper. And it's a question that I myself wanted to ask. Comrade Cooper was very clear in saying that everybody that has been at the helm of AZAPO has done something, has something that maybe they wanted to change. At this point today, AZAPO is honestly fighting for its life. We need to know what it is that should not have been done, that was done, that should be avoided by the next leadership. The reality is that we do have conference in a week. What is it that should not have been done, that was done, so that when the new leadership does come into place, they know what to do differently? I'm asking this because Comrade Saths is very clear in saying that they were not able to bridge the gap between what it is that the people were saying and what they were dissecting. And this has been going on for over 20, 30 years. And what now is my concern is that the leadership will be elected in a week's time, and they will continue to do exactly the same thing. And yet I sit here and I know that we have one window of opportunity, and the next leadership is either going to be the death of AZAPO, or it can actually do something to change the lives of our people by resuscitating AZAPO. And this question is now directed to the three of you. What should have been done differently? Why were you not able to bridge the gap?
Let me come in straight away, and I'm going to say,
Let's start there.
elect the best person for the position. Avoid any slate. Avoid any connection between the president and the secretary. Look at the individual standing and assess them on their merits, on their track record, and what they promise. And I think each of them should give what is it she will do to turn the organization around. And they should be given probably a minute or so to articulate that, rather than go into theories and stuff like that. Because if we in ICU now, we need emergency treatment. That is what I would do. So going for the kinds of things I've seen floating around all over the show perpetuates the dysfunction and will enable what is already a non-entity from hitting the grave. Thanks.
Comrade
Yeah,
Neff.
Can I come in here?
yeah, please.
This is a very important point you are making, Kekele. It's so important that it can't be finished at this webinar. Because if you understand what Veli was saying, these human interaction and things, they need care and they need people who can deal with them. But go the direction which Comrade Saths has suggested for this Congress, because you won't be able to pass the test which I'm putting to you from today up to Congress. So the best way is just to go the way in which Comrade Saths is suggesting. Go for capable people who can deliver on the job you have given. Don't go for articulation. Some people go for articulation, and there are many who can pass articulation only. You go for what can be delivered by position A and position B. In the past, Saths knows, in the past, that's what we used to do. We used to go to Congress and we would have what is called caucus. At caucus, you must tell us what you can deliver, and we will also tell you your weakness, direct to you to say, no, we think that position is not good for you because you have A, B, C, D, which you are not able to see, and we see it. And that way we were able to negotiate a proper leadership, which is not going by the slate, which is not going by who else you are associated with. So I really would want to emphasize again what Saths is saying. For this Congress which is coming, please try to go for capabilities and people who can deliver what we are discussing now. So the rest of the other things we can do after we have got a leadership which understand that AZAPO is in ICU. Once they can understand that and leave all these little things of personality grudges, which goes for 40 years and never ends, because those are not the struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mangena.
One of the things that has happened to our organization in later years is pettiness. You know, pettiness. I think there is a sense in which both of my comrades who are here have alluded to. Forget, when you go to congresses like this, forget that I drank your beer at a Shebeen 40 years ago, and you are holding a grudge against me. Or you and I fought over a partner or something. All those things must be relegated to the periphery. We've become very, very petty, to the extent that sometimes one wonders whether we are still Black consciousness. It seems we can forgive everybody else, but we can't forgive other Black people, but particularly Black people who are in our organization. If you have wronged me 30 years ago, that grudge stays in, and it manifests itself in our meetings and in the kind of that we do. And so let us concentrate on the bigger picture. When we go to the Congress, the bigger picture is the one that we have been describing here. Our country and our people are in trouble, in education, in services, in everything. And it is up to us to grapple with these problems with our people. But I can't grapple with those problems if I think that I can't grapple together with Comrade Saths, because 30 years ago, he drank my beer in a Shebeen without my permission, you know, that kind of thing. And it's this thing that Black people in our organization do not seem capable of forgiving other Black people. They will rather forgive whites. They will rather forgive anybody else, and even people in other political organizations, but they will not forgive a BC person. It is something that's perplexing. And if we, in this Congress that is coming, and in other Congresses, we will look at merit, we will look at this, the circumstances that face our country and our organization, and act accordingly. That you drank my beer does not belong there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, go for it, Kiki.
No, I wanted to read out Kabelo's message. Kabelo writes to us and says, the ANC willfully and deliberately chose to take the neo-colonialist route. They must lie in the bed that they made for themselves, and we should not find excuses for them. AZAPO should regenerate itself to fit in the changed politico-social arrangement brought through by the sellout settlement of 1994 in order to remain relevant. And I think this is quite critical. And he also says that in order to remain as the vanguard of the liberation of Black people, somebody needs to have a voice. And Dr. Mangena, you are so correct in pointing out that Black people are not willing to forgive Black people. Black people would rather return the leadership of the land to white people, as we have so seen in the last few days, because this is in there. But I think somebody just, I think it was Veli himself who said, Black people are so hurt. There is a deep-seated hurt and self-hatred that only Black consciousness can heal. AZAPO holds the medicine that needs to heal our people. It is critical that we understand why it is that Black consciousness is the key that will allow us to heal ourselves and subsequently to see the unfinished apartheid program, because that program continues today. the self-hatred, the unforgiving, the fact that we'd rather give white people access and control of our economy speaks to the deep hurt that we have internalized, that we have made our own, that we are willing to forgive the people who have hurt us, the people who hurt us consistently, so that we can get what we call instant gratification. That hurt is purely still what apartheid did to us. So the liberation of our people is far from over. The liberation movement we cannot talk about liberation fatigue. The liberation of our people is an incomplete project. AZAPO has the medicine, Black consciousness. Black consciousness is about self-love. We need to go back to the message of loving ourselves and loving our own brothers and sisters, so that we would be able to then forgive. And through that forgiveness, find the loopholes or the things that we can then use to start building the movement together. Ndate Hasha, I will give it back to you so that you can give it to our panelists to close.
No, thank you. A couple of comments coming from our Facebook platform. Umesh Bauer says, inward looking, though understandable, it's not appropriate at this time. A focus, solidarity, and activism is needed. And to the speakers, and we need to reactivate our Liberators Agency. And Comrade Cdes Saths saying, I agree with Comrade Veli that some of our comrades have internal injuries, especially those from exile. We need healing, especially in our regions. And here's Comrade Fuka on Facebook saying, given the possibility that AZAPO Congress may elect a new, more younger leadership, where do you see the strategic role of past leaders and or elders in guiding and supporting the incoming leadership and being invoked in organizational programs? And as eldership in AZAPO exonerate one from belonging to an active structure of the organization? So those are some of the comments that we see on our Facebook platform. It's time to wrap up and close. Our time has gone past our allocated 1.5 hours, and I'll start off with Comrade Saths Cooper. Your closing comment.
Mine is going to take a different tack and say, for the hurt and injury that persists, there are many of us who are trained and do this anyway for other organizations' members, rely on the existing expertise to ensure that those hurts and injuries don't continue to be the nightmares that you experience, so that the future can be exorcised of that. In making that metaphor, I trust that the leadership that gets elected is up to the task and takes us to a new high than any of the collectives that we've seen to date. To the issue of eldership, I think eldership should play the role of support. Being involved, yes, but I think sometimes we can overwhelm, and we should be wary of that. Thank you.
Nefolovhodwe?
Yeah, thank you very much. My concluding remarks is just to say, yes, what Seth is saying is correct. There are many people in our movement who have skills that can be used in order to do that healing. There are many of our organizations, comrades, who can really teach people to be community-oriented, to interact with the people out there. It's not a big issue. And so if a new leadership comes into being and it's willing to use the internal resources, that leadership can engage with many communities without having to go and read a book, simply by using the older generation that are within the movement. Now, also to conclude on a very important matter that I just hope, this is my hope, I just hope that we will not have slates. And I just hope we are not going again for slates. People will have cool heads so that we can have the movement back. As to what you were raising, Kekeleto, about the key to freedom. Yeah, you're correct, Kekeleto. The key to freedom is the psychological liberation of our people. We have been on this ever since we were formed. And we have a psychologist here who has been a former president of AZAPO. And we can do a lot of things. And that it means engaging communities. It is the people's mind that we must free from that psychological oppression. And if we stay in our houses and just WhatsApp, how will you be able to get rid of that psychological oppression? So I'm just saying, new leadership, let's go out there and use the key that Kekeleto has said is the key. And if people don't know how to unravel the key, again, go to the older generation amongst ourselves. There are many, but then when you go to them, leave this thing of begrudging people. Some of them are very, very good, but the movement has begrudged them. They can't even talk to them, and yet they've got skills that can take the movement further. Thank you.
Thank you, and then Comrade Mangena, and then KK, you do the vote of thanks.
Yes, I think that you will say amen at the end of Kekeleto's input, that we have got the tools, we have got the orientation, and that we need to use that in order to take our movement forward, but also our people and our country forward. And if only we did, we will find ourselves on a better path. And all one would say is all the things that we have said here as the downside of our movement in recent years, maybe in the last 20 years or so, it is that we have not been going out to our people. There is a tendency now that when people are elected, they cut themselves off from everybody else. Please reach out. Reach out to members of this organization who are elsewhere. Reach out to our people. Reach out to other organizations of our people. You know, if you go to the NGOs that are doing excellent work in our communities, they are Black people. They are doing things in the Black community. If we don't engage with them, who are we going to engage with? Which people do we want to serve if we are not in contact with people who are on the ground and working? We want our own separate people. Somebody has noted that AZAPO people are so aloof that even when they go to a funeral or whatever it is, they will pull away from the rest of the people. And you'll find them as a little group on their own, away from everybody else. And it is as if the people that they are interacting with are not real Black people. Remember, you have got a responsibility for Black people who are in the ANC. You've got a responsibility for Black people who are in INCAT. You've got a responsibility to Black people who are in the DA now. They need to be rescued by you, but you can't rescue them if you shun them, if you are not talking to them, if you are not interacting with them. I've been saying to a number of comrades that I am jealous. This many Black people I see jumping around in DA meetings with the program and the leadership that is taking them to whiteness. And because many of us are feeling now that whites are coming back again. Now this time they are going to use us to get to power, get Black people to vote them back into power when we are here. So let's reach out to one another. And not only meetings like this, we should be on the move, meeting with our community, reaching out to our comrades who are not in our structures presently, but Black people generally, reaching out to them so that we can together, in solidarity, rescue our country from the morass in which it finds itself in. And personally, as I indicated earlier, I think it might not only be morass, but it might be a catastrophe where we find ourselves fighting one another, killing one another needlessly.
Wow, what a fantastic afternoon we have had indeed. I'd like to thank our panelists, Comrades Nefolovhodwe, Cdes Saths Cooper, Comrade Mosibudi Mangena. Thank you so much for gracing this platform yet again and sharing your pearls of wisdom. I'm so grateful for your constant availability to this platform to educate and to make the time to share your time with us. I really, really appreciate you. To everybody else that's joining us on YouTube, on Facebook, and via all our other channels, I'm truly grateful that you are committed and love this country so much that you make a time every Sunday to come spend time with us, to learn, to engage with us. I'm truly grateful for your time and I appreciate you very much. Comrades and Piwe, thank you so much for keeping this platform going and the work that you do behind the scenes to make sure that we are here every Sunday. I thank you.
And thanks to everybody who managed to connect. And I knew that the 1.5 hours was never going to be enough with the three presidents. I know who they are and how they are. We need 1.5 hours for each of them. 1.5 hours for the three of them was never going to be enough. Next week, we will be playing host to the president of AZAPO, the incoming president of AZAPO. It may either be Comrade Khanare Lefuk or Comrade Nelvis Klegem. Time will tell. Saturday will tell. Those are the candidates that are contesting the AZAPO presidency in the incoming National Congress, Tanzanian People's Organization. I look forward to hosting one on this platform Sunday next week. It's a date. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, the struggle was not red. I experienced it, being deprived, being oppressed, even confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're proud to do